Hello everyone, and a very good evening to our 6th edition of Montague Island Books. Now, our guest tonight is very special because I normally, when I get the details of a guest that's coming on, I normally go on the Amazon bio and look at that. But our guest tonight has got two. So I'll tell you a little bit about him. He's a time-served joiner who has built bridges, houses, he's dug drains and slated roofs to make ends meet. But since Christmas 2000, he's been manager of a busy hotel and wedding venue near Gretna Green in Scotland. He's an internationally best-selling Kindle author and has 6 books featuring D.I. Harry Evans and the Cumbrian Major Crimes Team, and 4 novels featuring Utah doorman Jake Boulder. His Lake series, which has 3 novels featuring DC Beth Young, has received much critical acclaim. He's an avid fan of crime fiction since being given one of Enid Blyton's famous 5 books at the age of 8, and he's also been a regular reviewer and interviewer for the well-respected website crimesquad.com since 2009. He's the founder of Crime and Publishment, a weekend of crime writing classes which include the chance for attendees to pitch their novels to agents and publishers. And since the first weekend in 2013, 10 of the attendees have gone on to sign publishing contracts. Now, he, as I say, mixing the sort of the 2 biographies together here, he's put his hand to many different skills. He's a lifelong bibliophile, and he eventually summoned the courage to try writing himself, and his Graham Fletcher novels have drawn inspiration from authors such as Lee Child, Tom Kane, Zoe Sharp, and Matt Hilton. And when it comes to future novels, he says he's got more ideas than time to write them. When not writing, he enjoys spending time with his son, reading and socializing with friends. He's a fanatic supporter of his local football team and can often be found shouting encouragement to men much younger and fitter than he is. So I'm very pleased to welcome tonight Graham Smith, also known as John Ryder. How are you, Graham?
I'm very good. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Joe. You make it sound like I've achieved a hell of a lot more than I feel I've done when you read all that list out. No, just thrilled to be here, you know, any chance to engage with readers, you know, authors, anything like that. Great. Especially after the effects of this pandemic, when we've all missed so many get-togethers and so on. An opportunity like this is wonderful, and I certainly thank you for having me and for allowing me to invite good friend Sarah Hardy along as well.
That's right. Well, I'll let you explain. I'll let you you bring Sarah in. You can tell us a little bit about Sarah. But first of all, do you want to just sort of explain? Did I get everything right? Was there anything I missed in the?
No, everything was right except for Crime and Publishment has now had 14 people signed publishing contracts, but that's my fault for not updating my bio more often. So,
must be hard when you've got 2. So
Sarah Hardy is a blogger who I met online. I've been lucky enough to meet and enjoy her company. You know, we're friends now. She's one of my beta readers, one of the first people to read a book and tell me what's wrong with it. Before even my editor or agent, Sarah usually gets a look because I trust her opinion so much.
Wonderful.
When I signed with Bloodhound Books, she was working for them, and I was lucky enough to have her as my publicist at the time. And she later moved on to Bookouture, where I had the 3 books featuring Beth Young, and then the new series as John Ryder. And she works on my publicity there. So I'm very fortunate to have Sarah in my life. It's wonderful knowledge, and she's not afraid to tell me when I'm going wrong as well. Which
it sounds like you keep her busy as well, Graham.
Oh yeah, she's a busy lass, but she's someone I consider a good friend and a massive bibliophile. I think I'm well read till I start talking books with her.
Well, that's brilliant, and a very good evening to you, sir, and thanks for Graham for giving the introduction there, and nice to have you with us as well, sir.
Oh, it's lovely to be here. Thank you very much.
That's great. So what we'll do then is we will, well, first of all, before we start having a look at what we're going to be taking to the island, do you want to sort of, Graham, tell us a little bit about your books, you know, where people can find out about you, what's in the pipeline, and anything that you can tell us at the minute?
Yeah. Well, I'm now mostly writing as John Ryder. I have the Grant Fletcher series. They're set in America. If you think along the lines of the Jack Reacher style novels, that's the kind of market I'm aiming for. It's the same with my Jake Boulder series. Whereas the other two, the D.I. Harry Evans and the D.C. Beth Young series, they're set in Cumbria, a wonderful county of Cumbria and the Lake District, and you know, such a fantastic place to set books because there's so many great places to hide a body.
And not far to go to Montague Island.
Well, yes. I must mention that to Craven next time I see him. See if I can borrow it for a little while.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're set there. They can all be found on Amazon. Search for me or the character names and you'll be able to find them. I've got the websites, johnryder.com and grahamsmithauthor.com, which, like so much in my life, are awaiting an update.
So are the books just in e-format, or are they paperbacks, hardbacks, audiobooks, anything like that?
A little bit of a mix. They're available as paperbacks from Amazon. Some are audiobooks. Certainly the Beth Young and the Grant Fletcher novels are in audiobook, and there's a couple of the Jake Boulders, but for the most part, they are digital or paperback.
Great.
Not yet been lucky enough to score a hardback contract.
And what's in the pipeline? Obviously, we're having all those different characters and different series. What's in the pipeline currently or next?
Well, I'm working on my fourth novel writing as John Ryder, while also going through the final editing processes of Grant Fletcher 3, which is Third Kill, and that's out on the 28th of April. Mm-hmm. So that's the next release, but I also have to complete a book and get it to my editor by the 1st of April. So guess who's going to be messaging you soon, Sarah?
Sarah's going to be busy. So have you ever thought of writing a book, Sarah?
Yes, I have. Well, basically being around people like Graham, also I've got a few other friends like Noelle Holton and Sharon Bairden, who have obviously, she's just got a debut book out. So it's hard to kind of like not be around these people and not catch the writing bug. So I think, was it 2 years ago now, I went to bloody Scotland and obviously met up with all them and came back kind of like full of ideas, wrote a short story. But that's kind of like, oh, I've written a few short stories for now, but I've just been that busy, and I love reading as well, so trying to fit everything in. Unfortunately, I've not got very far with actually writing a novel.
But you started.
Well, I've had to go, like I said, with short stories. I've got a few ideas, but it's actually just kind of like putting pen to paper and starting it.
Yeah, great. And with Noelle and Sharon, they're both members of Bookends, our book club, and I'm just trying to encourage them to come on here as well. So hopefully we'll get them at some time in the summer. Although I know they're going to be busy with a lot of the festivals opening up. Just actually quickly before we go on to talk about the island, Graham, you're probably an ideal person to tell us the difference, obviously, between lockdown and what you do in your normal day job, because I'm presuming your day job you can't do anything at the minute. So I presume you're very much looking forward to, is it May when you'll be able to open? Hopefully.
Well, technically here in Scotland, it's to be the end of April when we can reopen. But just because we can't open the doors and welcome people here, it doesn't mean to say it's not busy. There's an awful lot of weddings to be rearranged at the moment. You know, people are still looking to book. You know, people still have queries. You know, they want to know if we've got a double room for granny or whatever. So there's always something doing. There's always something to keep us busy. And this week has been particularly busy for myself and my wedding team, dealing with the fallout of the Prime Minister and the First Minister's announcements and all the weddings that they've directly affected by keeping us locked down quite so long. So
that's so I presume you've been closed all year so far, have you, all through January and February?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
So it's going to take some getting back into a routine, isn't it, I suppose?
It is. It's too easy to get home in the middle of the afternoon and just lie on the couch watching telly when I could be doing something productive.
Writing another book. Yeah. Well, that's great, but it's nice to see there's some light at the end of the tunnel. So it sounds like you're going to be busy in more ways than one over the next few months. So as you both know, you're both going to the imaginary island of Montague Island off the Cumbrian coast. No sunshine and what have it island here. It's off the Cumbrian coast with the wind and the rain and the snow. And with you, along with what the books that you choose and the bits that you choose, there's also an imaginary set of all the Mike Craven paper books. Obviously Montague Island is where the curator was set, one of Mike's books, so we're making that a sort of an imaginary set to take with you. And then you can take you've got 7 choices of books you can take with you. So what would be your first choice, Graham?
I would take as my first choice my all-time favourite book, which is HMS Ulysses by Alistair MacLean. I first read this, it'd be somewhere around 30 years ago, probably 30 plus. It is the book I have most often reread. It is a wonderful story that initially at first you think about it and it's a book about a battleship protecting a convoy that was going up over the top of Scandinavia and to Russia. And there's threats from the German U-boat wolf packs and a big battleship such as the Bismarck. It is not. It is so much more than that. It really is a story about the men on that ship and their relationships and their code of duty and the sense of honor and so on. Every time I reread it, I get something else from it. A fantastic book.
And it's a book you don't really, I've never read it, but it's one that you don't really hear a lot about.
No, I mean, it was probably written back in the late 50s, 60s. I mean, it's one of those Sunday afternoon matinee war films that was always on.
Yeah.
But initially, when I got into my teens and that, I was going to the libraries and so on. And I think that was either in the school library or the one at Gretna where I lived at the time. And but I thought I'll try it, and I just absolutely loved it. There's pace, there's plot, and there's character in oodles. You know, and I've read practically every book he's written. I think I have read them all. I do not allow myself to live a life without a copy of HMS Ulysses in it.
So you'll always
tell you where
find
it is at the moment, but I know I've got a copy somewhere.
That's great, but great to have a book that, as you say, you know, has come through you from a young person, and you know that one, but especially one that you first got out of the library as well. So it's you know, that's great. And what about you, Sarah? What would your first book be?
Well, watching obviously some of your other episodes, I know this author gets quite a few mentions, Stephen King. But I mean, come on, we all grew up on him, didn't we?
Yeah.
So obviously, you know, he was a big part of my reading through my teens and early 20s especially. But I've tried to go for a different book to what other people have mentioned. So it'd be Salem's Lot. solely because I actually watched the film first as a child and had nightmares before I actually read the book, and the book was actually as scary as the film.
That's great. As you say, I think we all go through that phase, don't we, where it's a Stephen King one is probably one of the first, scary books, or as you say, what we sometimes quite often see the film before, probably a long time before we should. But
yes, I was very young to be watching it, and that's why I had nightmares.
But it's surprising how we then quite often, quite a number of years later, go back to the book, and it's like reliving. Well, it's a bit like reliving a bit of your childhood, isn't it? So,
God, it is. Yeah, the boy outside the window floating, that still kind of like gives me nightmares now. And I think even with all the makeup and that they can do in films, I think the vampire in Salem's Lot has still got to be hands down one of the most scariest looking vampires in history.
Definitely takes some beating, that, doesn't it? That's a great choice. And what's your second book going to be, Graham?
Again, I'm kind of sticking with some of my all-time favourites, and this one is from an author who's not got anything like the acclaim that he deserves, or his rank deserves. This book is The Accident Man by Tom Kane.
Right.
It features a hero who is an assassin called Samuel Carver. I've read the entire series. It has been an inspiration. Lucky enough to have met the name behind the pseudonym in real life. And The Accident Man is about an assassin who's hired to take out a target. He thinks it's a drugs runner or something like that. But the target is traveling through a tunnel in Paris in a black Mercedes. So I can see from your face, I see your reaction. And then, of course, he finds out who he's actually killed. So he goes after his paymasters. And it is the best conspiracy theory I've ever read by a long way, because the answers that he gives for the reason for the death of that lady who's never actually named in the book. We all know who he's referencing, but she's never named. The reason that he gives for her being assassinated just makes the most wonderful sense. It's truly believable. It's art imitating life to the highest degree. So
is it a bit of a faction book? Is there a lot of sort of fact in it as well as fiction?
There is, or rather, there's a lot of the well-known conspiracy theories being addressed, such as the Duke of Edinburgh have a hand in it and all that kind of thing. But I mean, Tom Kane went on. He is currently co-writing with Wilbur Smith. Right. So he's very, and the Sam Carver series as a whole is fantastic. Sarah knows how that's inspired me. I obviously can't say too much because it's a great big spoiler. But
how many books are in the series?
There's 6 books in the Sam Carver series. Each one's very topical, very cleverly done. I mean, they tackle subjects such as dictators in Africa, the London riots of a few years ago, assassination attempts on the US president. Very,
topical subjects.
High concept thrillers set against real topical subjects. Tom Kane.
Classic page turners as well, then, by the sounds of it.
Oh, utterly fantastic. Can't recommend them highly enough.
Great, I have to check him out. So that's a great one. And what about you, Sarah? What's your second book?
I've tried to go for quite a bit of a mixed bag with my selection. So my second one, it's called Cloven Hoof by Heidi Goody and Ian Grant. It's a humorous book. It features Satan, who has been fired from obviously his role as Satan, and he gets sent to Earth to live as a human. Obviously has no clue about technology or anything. He ends up, he's mad about Lambrini. Kinder's crispy pancakes. You know, you can just kind of like tell, you know, from just what I'm saying. It's a really humorous and fun read, and it takes a lot for me to be able to like laugh out loud when I'm reading a book. And this one, you know, non-stop. It was really, really good. If you were looking for something fun, very different, very out there, then highly recommend it.
And you don't often see many, well, I can't think of any sort of humorous books that's been written by, you know, the co-written two authors. I don't think I can think of a humorous book that's been written by two authors. So that makes it a bit different.
These two work very well together. And there's actually a few books in the series, and it's just really, really fun reads, all of them.
Oh well, you'll have a good giggle while you're on the island.
Yes,
then
definitely. Yes, there's lots of bits that we could have a good laugh about.
That's great. And so we're now on to book number 3. So what's yours, Graham?
This is again a modern thriller. It's by Simon Koenig, who I'm lucky enough to know and chat to when I'm able to attend festivals. It's called Severed. The lead character wakes up and finds the headless body of his girlfriend beside him.
Oh, lovely.
And there's a note on his television to put the video in, and there's a video showing him killing his girlfriend.
Wow.
Except he hasn't done it. So it's one of Simon's first books, and utterly fantastically fast-paced. Absolutely brilliant book. It's one of those that you start reading it at 10 o'clock at night, think just one more chapter.
And it's 1
and
o'clock
then
in the
you're still
morning.
going at 5 in the morning because you're only 20 pages from the end.
Yeah, I think we've all had them kind of books, haven't we? You know, where it's like, well, yeah, just one more chapter or couple more pages, and then we'll call it a day. And then no, it's impossible, isn't it? But that sounds quite interesting, and one that'll keep you awake on the island.
Yes.
So, what's your third book, Sarah?
The third one is by an author, David Jackson, who I came across. I think I received an arc of one of his book, the first book actually in the series, which features DS Nathan Cody. But this is the third book, which is called Don't Make a Sound. Even though it is a third book, it can easily be read as a standalone, because I recommend this book to absolutely everybody and anyone. You know, I never shut up about it. I think I've gotten quite a few fans. It's a brilliant book, and it's a bit hard because you can't really say too much about the storyline.
Yeah.
But it's a couple have a girl which they've already basically stolen, and they're looking out for another girl to take. So obviously Nathan.
So it's quite dark.
Very dark, yes. It's you know, very twisty as well, which obviously there's quite a few shocks in store. But like I said, this is one of the books that I always recommend to everybody, and well, touch wood, everybody that's come back to me and says they've absolutely loved it and thanked me for, you know, recommending it. So yeah, it's one that
super. Another one I'll have to check out, another to add to the mountain. Well, that's great. So we're now moving on to book number 4. So did you have an easy choice on your 4th book, Graham?
Yes, it depending on the day or which way the wind's blowing, it's in my top 3 ever written. And this one is probably the most recent book on my list. It is The Devil Aspect by Craig Russell. Basically, the plot is about this criminal psychologist who goes to work at an asylum in Czechoslovakia. The year's 1938. Europe's preparing for war, and the asylum sits on top of a mountain. It's designed to take the worst of the worst. So it has just 6 inmates in this insane asylum for the criminally insane, and every one of them is as bad as Hannibal Lecter or worse. They are known as the Devil's 6.
Gosh, great place to be there.
Oh yes, and meanwhile in Prague, there's a killer running around aping the Jack the Ripper killings. He's known as Leather Apron.
Leather Apron.
Yeah, and
that's a bit different, isn't it?
Yes, Well, I think it goes from the old butcher's apron, and the book is just utterly fantastic. It's a crime horror crossover. Columbia Pictures have bought the rights for it,
Yeah,
and I think it's a stronger book than Silence of the Lambs in that little subset genre.
Yeah. So we all need to go and go out and buy the book before the film comes out and read the book first.
Yeah, absolutely. And Craig is an author I've known and read for years. Every time I read one of his books, I learn about the craft of writing. They're just so beautifully written. So
great. Another good one. Another one to add to the list. And what's your fourth one, sir? Did you have any difficulties deciding?
Well, no, because this one, I don't think it's a cheat, but To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, it's a book I haven't actually read, but I've bought it after years, because I keep saying I'm going to read it. I've actually bought it, and it's still sat years later, waiting to be read. So I'm hoping the time on the island is going to actually give me the chance to sit and read it and see what I'm missing out.
Definitely, I've never read it, but it's just one of those books that everybody just knows the title, even if you don't really. I can't even really think what it's about. I must have been told it at school, but I can't even think what it's about. But it's just one of them titles that you just know it's a classic.
Everybody's heard of it, haven't they? But like you say, it's unfortunate. I've just never ever got around to reading it. So
well, you will do on the island. Like I'm missing out. Yeah, you will do on the
island. I read it at school. I had to read it.
But we never did it at school, so.
Yeah. So, did you enjoy it, Graham?
I don't remember hating it. But back then I was just probably getting into the likes of Alistair MacLean, Clive Cussler, Dick Francis, more towards the adult crimey stuff. You know, To Kill a Mockingbird, I don't remember there being a detective or a gunfight or car chases or anything. So it didn't grab me quite as much as perhaps it should.
No,
didn't have the appreciation for literature then I do now.
Yeah, you just mentioned an author there who I think is very sort of undervalued. Is that the right word? Clive Cussler. I just think some of his books are amazing.
Yeah, I read a lot of them in my teens.
Yeah.
I did stop reading them as I got into my 20s because I felt that he was saving the world too often.
Yeah.
With the Dirk Pitt and so on. I liked it when it was smaller scales, books like The Mayday or Raise the Titanic, or was the other one Mediterranean Caper.
Yeah, he started writing books with other people, didn't he? Or sort of putting his name on and other people writing them, and it just went a bit off. But certainly those early, I don't know, 10, 12, maybe 15 books were just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. But as you say, it was James Bond on overdrive, wasn't it? You know, but that's great. So we're now on to book number 5. So what is your 5th book, Graham?
My 5th book is probably one of the all-time classics, Lord of the Rings trilogy by J.R.R. Tolkien. I first read that in my teens. I had a summer job at the age of 15.
Okay.
And I used to put a book into my piece bag to read at lunchtime. It had me that gripped, and just loved the whole world building and the fact that he brought in languages for elves and the orcs and the dwarfs, and just utterly brilliant. Like HMS Ulysses, it's a book I have reread countless times and will read again in the future.
And it's a set of books that'll keep you going for a while as well, isn't it?
Well, yes. I mean, Montague Island's not going to have good weather, so there's going to be a lot of reading time sitting in a chair by the fire.
Definitely. Definitely. Well, that's a great choice. I think we had a couple of people choose similar, and as you say, you know, if you're sat by a fire, what better kind of thing could you want to read, really? Just it's taking you, transports you to another world, doesn't it? So, you know, that's a great choice.
Although now, having said that, when Sarah brought To Kill a Mockingbird off the to be read pile, I'm thinking maybe I should swap that for the Game of Thrones books, because there's a bit of reading in them as well.
Yeah, there is definitely. So what's your next book going to be, Sarah?
So my next one, I couldn't come on here with Graham, who I've always been a big fan of anyway. Obviously ever since I've known him, he's had obviously a few series out. But I thought the one that I would mention that I'd love to take with me is First Shot, which is under his obviously his other name, John Ryder. And this is the first in the Grant Fletcher series, which is set in the US. But it's got Special Agent Zoe Quadrado. I don't know if I said it right. You've got like a kick-ass lady in it, which is always good. And then you've obviously got Grant Fletcher, which he also gets the hearts, I think, kind of like fluttering a bit for us ladies. As well as being, it's just got like a full mix of everything. Crime, investigation, there's action as well. And I love the small town settings, because it's always going to cause trouble. There's always kind of like trouble. I think he comes looking for Grant, bless him, so he's always kind of like in some sort of danger, which gives the reader, lots of thrills along the way.
And you can even get Graham to read it to you as well.
Could have an audio version in the same.
Who needs an audio book when you've got the man himself there?
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you.
Just, I've got actually a question on that, Graham. So, what was the thing about obviously the books based in the lakes and what have you, and then books based in America? Was there anything that made you start to write books in sort of America, or?
Well, it's often the scale of the idea, and there's certain things you can't have people using guns on a day-to-day basis, one tucked into the back of their jeans in the Lake District, especially, yes, we'd had the horrible incident with Derek Bird. Don't want to glorify or hate that in any way, but gun shootouts don't tend to happen in this country. Maybe they'll happen the odd time in London or Birmingham, but America's the kind of place for that. And I'm also a very cussed person. I was very close to getting a deal with my debut novel, Snatched from Home, with an American publisher. It got past the editor, it got past the owners who had to read every new submission. They all loved it, but the marketing people said they couldn't sell a British set book by a British author to an American audience.
Wow.
So I missed out on the deal. So my thinking was, I'll show them that I can write a book that they can sell to an American audience. Wrote one, and the editor had moved on, never heard back. And it got published elsewhere. And that's when I first started working with Sarah. So out of everything comes something better. Out of every bad news comes a piece of better news.
That's it. And obviously, but your lake, the lakes books are written in the lakes. And places in America, were they real, or did you sort of use imaginary places?
I tended, with First Shot, the town where it's set is Davisville, and because I was less than complimentary about the town and the townspeople, I made up that name. Davisville doesn't exist, to my knowledge, though I did base it off a lot of small Georgia towns. For Jake Boulder, I decided where I wanted him to live, in terms of the part of Utah. I found a town so that I could research things like flora and fauna, rainfall, weather, all that kind of thing. And I changed the name to protect the innocents, because it was a town of maybe 20 to 30,000. And sometimes when you can't go there yourself, and you're going to get something wrong. But if you change the name to make it fictional, everything's possible to be right, because the place technically doesn't exist, although it's based on a real town.
You're creating it, aren't you, in a way? You're creating the town or the place.
Yes, but without going into the huge world building of George Martin or J.R.R. Tolkien, you can lift an awful lot. You can, I've seen me look at 2 or 3 restaurant menus to see what were popular dishes in the city, so that I can have my characters eat something that might be regional or whatever. That's the kind of hidden research that people don't really talk about. But
that's right.
And it just makes you hungry, though.
That's great. So we're now on, what are we on now? I think we're on the 6th book now. So what's your book number 6, Graham?
I'm going to look after the kids here, and I'm going to go back to my early days, and I'm going to bring the Famous 5 series. My whole love of crime fiction traces back to a day someone handed me a copy. I think it was the 7th book in the series, 5 Go and Do Something Interesting, or whatever the title was. And that was it. I read all the Famous 5, the Secret 7s. Then I went on to like the Castle of Adventure. And that was the book. That first Enid Blyton Famous 5 book was the one that got me hooked on reading. So if there's ever any kids going to be on Montague Island, I want to set them off on the right path.
That's a great idea. And I think that looking on various, particularly crime forums, funnily enough, but so many people, say, well, Enid Blyton was the person that got me interested in first of all reading, but also in writing. And I think with just so many that mentioned that name. So, but that's great, and as I say, more to keep you company as well, isn't it? So that's great. And what about you, sir? What's your book number 6?
So my 6th one, I've gone for Nightfall by Stephen Leather. So it's crime, but slightly different because it's supernatural. It features Jack Nightingale. It's the first book in the series. And it was my brother that actually got me onto this series because he's a huge fan of the author. And he told me just to try this book. So I thought, oh, go on, then I'll give it a go. And I just love like I said, with it being supernatural, again, kind of like selling your soul to the devil type thing. It's just very different take on a crime series, really. And it's one that I really loved and enjoyed. I've read all the books in the series now. So it'd be great to kind of like go back to the first one again and reread it.
Yeah, that's it. I think when you have read a series, to when you make that step back and then just go back to the first one, it just like opens up so many different things, doesn't it? So that's great. And great that you have read all the series. So we're now on to the final book. So what's your final book number 7 going to be, Graham?
I'm going to take When the Lion Feeds by Wilbur Smith. It's the first, technically it's his debut. It is set in the 1890s, southern part of Africa, and it features the Courtney family, specifically Sean and his brother Garrick. And it's grand adventure. It really, really is. It's utterly brilliant. You can almost hear the lion roaring at night in the distance when you're reading it. So immersive in the time. I mean, Sean Courtney is the kind of tough guy that would make Rambo seem like a wuss. When you read the book, and the book starts with him at the age of 15, 16, him and his brother Garrick, and just brilliant. I've read right up through the series. It's been brought back in various guises. Wilbur Smith stepped back to when the Courtneys first came to Africa. They were on a sailing ship and everything. Brilliant and brutal throughout the series. Absolutely fantastic.
And I think what you were saying before about world building, he doesn't necessarily build worlds, but he takes you into that world, doesn't he, Wilbur Smith? He actually like picks you up and transports you and drops you in it, because everything's just described so well, and send all the senses.
Yes, it's a very immersive book. You feel like you're being dipped in the landscape.
Yeah, that's a great way of describing it. That really, yeah, dipped into the landscape. That's a good one. So a great one to end in. And what is going to be your number 7, Sarah?
Well, mine's is going to be a series. It's a bit hard because I know that some people are, but I think majority of people are Harry Potter fans, and I absolutely love them. I mean, I read them obviously as an adult, well past my childhood when they came out, but they're brilliant books, and there's no way that I could choose just one that's my favourite because they're all fantastic books, and to be able to go back and reread again, start from the beginning, go right through seeing, because it starts off quite light and and then it gets darker obviously as the series goes along, but it's a really brilliant magical reading experience, and it's fantastic. And again, they're the ones where the films for me are just as good as the books. They're very in keeping. They've tried to keep as much to the storyline as possible.
Yeah, and also, like we were saying with your last book, it's one of them where you want, when you've read them all, to be able to go back and sort of start again. It's like, although you know what's going, it's still like a new experience, isn't it? Because you pick up so many bits and pieces along the way. So that's great.
You discover something new that you've missed, kind of like first time round.
And the size of the books as well, it'll keep you going for a while.
Exactly, yeah.
So that's all important as well, isn't it? So great selections on all the books. Really great to hear all that, and thanks for giving us an explanation on each one. So we've got a few other items, as I'm sure you know. So on the island, we're led to believe that there is around 1 hour of electricity a day, and that's all you get. So you get the opportunity to take a CD with you, a music CD. So what would you choose, Graham, as the CD to take with you onto the island?
I would take Appetite for Destruction. Guns N' Roses at their absolute finest. Raw, angry, violent, threatening, just like the weather.
And if you're on the island as well, you can play it as loud as you want.
Yeah.
But that's a good choice. Is it an album you sort of always played, or is it just one you played since it came out, kind of thing?
I still listen to Guns N' Roses regularly now. It's the music of my youth, that they were complete rebels, they were nutters, Axl Rose jumping off the stage to fight with a fan at the concert, and all that.
Yeah, that's but just so many stories, and probably a lot more that we don't even know about that are still to come out. That's great. So that'll keep everybody alive with that one bumping away. And what's your album going to be, Sarah?
It would have to be a greatest hits album from Nickelback, because I don't know whether Graham would kind of appreciate them as much as obviously Guns N' Roses.
One or two songs could be tolerated.
It's just I have a playlist on my phone that I listen to quite often, just a mix of all their songs from different albums. Some of them, I'm not a big fan of all the songs, but a lot of them have got a really a deeper meaning to it when you really listen to the words and stuff. So really like them. So I'd take that album.
Great choice. So there's going to be plenty of music on the island. That's good. And now, as I say, with the limited electric, you also get a DVD to play. Now that can be a film, or it can be like a music concert, or it can be a TV series. But you only get an hour a day, so you might have to watch it over several days. So, what would your DVD be, Graham?
Die Hard. So best film ever made. You always got to say that. You say that. It's brilliant film. I could practically quote it word for word. It's not Christmas until you've seen Hans Gruber fall from the Nakatomi Plaza.
Definitely.
Brilliant. That's a great thing, isn't it? It's not Christmas until there's always a film one, isn't there? So that's good, and that'll keep you both entertained. So what's yours going to be, Sarah?
Mine's has got to be Only Fools and Horses.
Oh,
Grew up on it and absolutely love this series. I mean, it just never gets old. You know, you can watch it over and over again, and you know, like the chandelier, the bit where he falls behind the bar. You know, there's still as funny kind of like watching it for the 100th time as it was watching it the first time.
I know the bar one was on the telly. I forget. I don't know why we were playing it, but you showed a clip of the bar one, and it's still one that just like you've seen thousands of times, but it just makes.
No, it does. It's brilliant. Yeah.
And just some of the one-liners that come out from Rodney and what have you as well. They're just, no matter what mood you're in, put that on, it's going to cheer you up.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
So, that's a great choice. So you've got your CDs, you've got your DVDs packed. So now you get to take a food. So it can be a particular food or a particular meal that you enjoy, but you're only allowed to take sort of, you know, one actual food or one meal with you. So what would yours be, Graham?
Curry. I would take a curry with me.
Homemade?
No, I'm not a good curry chef. I can cook other stuff, but when it comes to curries, I'm a complete snob. I want to believe the man who cooks my curry has been to Delhi. You know, I really am a snob when it comes to curry. And I would love to take a beautiful curry just to wind up Mike craving that I had a beautiful curry and he didn't.
So would you have any particular preference?
No, just chicken, mid-strength, full of flavour, full of herbs. There's an Indian I go to in Carlisle, and the guy that owns it, Barry, he would just say to him, "There's a chicken curry, Barry," and he'll just go away and he'll cook one, and we go off menu all the time, and that it's absolutely delicious. And we can trust him.
So you and Mike Craven will be going propping up the counter waiting for your curries, will you?
Well, it was Mike that took me to that restaurant the first time.
Brilliant. So it's one of those. It's a memory thing as well, isn't it? That you're taking with you if you take, you know, something like that. It's great. So that'll keep you going with the curry. And what about you, Sarah? What would your food or meal be?
God, I don't know. There's loads. I'm trying to narrow it down to one. I'd say one of my like all-time comfort type of meals is steak and kidney suet puddings with chunky chips and mushy peas.
There you go. Proper chip shop meal, that one, isn't it?
Yeah. It has to be Holland's as well. I'll get their name in there. I don't like any other.
And gravy.
I do like a steak and kidney puddings, but theirs are amazing.
And gravy.
Yeah. Oh yes, I've got to have gravy as well. Yes.
Yeah.
And some naan bread so that I can nick some of Graham's curry.
Yeah.
No way.
That could be contentious, that one, couldn't it? But it sounds a good choice. So one other thing you're allowed to take now, and probably this is what we get all kinds of choices on this one, but it's a luxury item. So bear in mind, obviously, the amount of electricity where you'll be. You're in the Irish Sea on this remote island that's more than likely for most of the year going to be quite cold and windy and everything else. So what would you take as your luxury item? What's yours, Graham?
I would take Bear Grylls as my luxury item. Because if there's anybody who can find a 4-star hotel in adverse conditions, it's Bear Grylls. And failing that, he's got the skills to keep me warm and fed.
I like your thinking, Graham. That's
that's a good. That's been but you spent a bit of time thinking about that one, Graham, haven't you?
No, it just kind of came right off. But no, that would work.
Yeah, it would keep you. You wouldn't go hungry with him, would you? Really? Yeah, that's a good choice. And what about you, Sarah?
God, I don't know. Now that just kind of like makes mine sound like really kind of like. I was gonna like some really thick socks. I hate my feet cold.
Well, we've had people saying hairbrushes and all sorts, so there's nothing wrong with thick socks, especially if it's going to be very cold. So why not? Yeah. Graham's got Bear Grylls. You've got your socks. So that's great. Well, thank you both for going through all that, because it's great to hear your choices, and obviously books that have influenced you, Graham, in your writing, and also Sarah, you in your reading, and sort of the work you do helping Graham out with the beta reading and what have you as well. So just before we go, do you want to just tell everybody again, Graham, what's a little bit about the books, where they can get them, and where they can contact you if need be?
Yeah, I have 4 series featuring 4 different lead characters, quite obviously. 2 of those are police procedural series set in Cumbria. They are the D.I. Harry Evans series. First novel there is Snatched from Home. The other series is Beth Young, DC Beth Young. Her first novel, Death in the Lakes, sees her investigating bodies that have been left hidden in the cellars of derelict country houses around Cumbria. And the bodies aren't in a good state, I think it's fair to say, Sarah. The other series, the Jake Boulder series, written as Graham Smith, and the Grant Fletcher series, written as John Ryder. They're set in the States. They are kind of punch first, think second, ask questions third. At times, though, both men are as intelligent as I can possibly make them, which makes them as clever as I am. So it's good and bad there. But they are real page turners. They're fast-paced books, and all my books can be found on Amazon. You can get paperback or ebook that way, and several of them are also available as audiobooks.
Super.
So
now, obviously, at the minute, people can't get to a lot of bookshops. Obviously, we can use Amazon, but we can't get to a lot of bookshops. We can't get to sign-ins and the festivals and all the rest of it. So, if anyone watching or listening wanted a signed book, can they get them directly from you, or do they go to your publisher, or what's the situation?
If you contact me through my web, you can arrange a signed book.
Super. So that's great.
Can do.
And Sarah, now you've had a chance to think about your sort of book writing. Do you think it'll ever come off? Will you ever get that novel written?
Oh, I'd like to think I will do, but I don't know, because I love reading as well, and it's kind of like, do I read? Do I write? There's just so many great books out there and so many fantastic authors. So hopefully I'll find time to kind of try and sort it out so that I've got the time to actually sit and write. But at the moment, I think that's a bit on the back burner. So fingers crossed. I'm never going to say never, that it's never going to happen. Hopefully, but at the moment the reading's coming kind of like priority.
Yeah, I don't know how authors manage it, because there's that many great books to read. How can you stop reading and start start writing? But they all manage to do it. So, and more power to their elbow. So that's that's really good. Well, as I say, thank you both so much. I've really enjoyed tonight, and I'm sure you've given a lot of people a lot of different choices to add to their TBR mountains or TBR lists. And hopefully they'll all go and get some of the videos and books and CDs that we've mentioned, and replay part of her sort of childhood or history as well. So thank you both so much, and we'll meet up with you again soon, I'm sure.
Yep, thanks very much for having us, Joe. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. See you, Sarah.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.